Incoming Startup Tutorial. Tutorial video number 8. PV Settings. PV Communication Settings is available under the Setting category of the EC Web. Incoming Controller uses the Modbus RTU Communication or TCP Communication Protocol to receive readings. PV Modbus RTU communication happen only via COM port 3 of ECPv2. You have to select COM port 3 before move to the PV settings. Use PV editing option for all PV related settings. Through your assigned settings on PV, the incoming controller receive data and perform the synchronized control of PV production. Let's go ahead and click Settings category, then select COM port 3 and then click the PV editing. When you click the PV symbol here, you can see variety of settings for the PV connection. Let's go through one by one. We start with the first editing option called Rated, which is reference of PV inverter production capacity. Fill out inverter P capacity, inverter Q capacity and PV panel capacity and save the changes. The next editing is Measurement. Measurement setting allow the controller to read the production level of your PV plant. The level of production will be measured from connected power meters or inverters. Here under the measurement you have to edit 3 sub-menus, which are Sensing Method, kW Origin, and Kilowatt-hour Origin. On the Sensing Method editing, you have to select right sensing method for your installation. Sensing method determines what power readings to base the calculated references. kW Origin setting is the reference for the controller about how the production measurement being interfaced on your site. If your production measured via power meter, the selection will be PV meter. Inverter control ID/IP will be selected when you get power reading from a master inverter controller or gateway such as Huawei Smart Logger, SunGrow COM100E, SMA Inverter Manager. These master controllers typically offer a summarized production of all connected inverter contributions on their own. The ECPV can also take the power contribution of individual inverters directly from their own power measurements via inverter communication. In this instance you have to select inverter acquisition. In case the controller uses PV power data written from a superior controller, the Modbus map page 3 communication will be used. Kilowatt-hour origin determines from where to retrieve or calculate the PV energy production. Here 2 methods can be supported, which are ECPv2 and power meters. If the production measure with power meter, the ECPv2 will read the total energy counter from the power meters and summarize the production. In this case here the setting will be power meters. The other option is ECPv2. In this scenario, controller integrates energy counters itself based on the measured kilowatt. The next chapter is References. Here the priority means the controller setting determines whether to prioritize P or Q over the other. P references the active power and Q references the reactive power. If you need to disregards this active and reactive power references, you can off the setting. The limit settings for mains and genset is the reference for the controller. ECPv2 control the production limit according to this setting for both main and genset and manipulate PV energy flow according to load fluctuation. The percentage of production for both main and DG settings will be maintained by the controller regardless fluctuation of the load. COSFI cap and COSFI IND outline the operating range of the inverters. If COSFI is enabled, Then the settings actively affect when the reference exceeds the outlined range, which means the ECPV2 will limit the Q references accordingly. Next editing is ramping settings. There are two options. First is island setting, which is the PV parallel with genset. Second setting is grid tied setting, where the PV parallel with grid. Both island and grid tied setting has two sub-settings which are ramp up and ramp down for both P and Q. In case PV paralleling with gensets only, then ramps will be bypassed in order to attempt to clear the hazardous situations. Hazardous can be a situation the genset is facing return power on the output greater than 0%. Or the genset is overloaded greater than 100% on the output. This setting is essential for how to handle the power flow when starting the PV plant. The ECPV2 offers an initial ramp threshold to avoid the PV reference being ramped up before even connecting the inverters. Tariff setting is for calculate the revenue generated based on the PV generation alone. The revenue is referred to as PV export savings. Set your own tariff units in order to produce your reports. On the counter setting, you have the possibility to set any preset values. Here the values updated automatically by the controller. This guide tutorial has covered all PV related setting. Power meter and inverter settings for the PV connection will be presented in separate tutorial videos. Thank you for watching the video. This video presented by Income. For more information, please visit our website www.mcomb.com.